Hello. This week we're going to talk about effective sentences in Chapter 6. So we want to start visualizing the process with our editing of sentences. To do this effectively, you want to develop a clear style. And you do this by giving your sentences content, making sure your sentences are specific. You want to avoid overpacking your sentences. You want to fix the major errors. Pay attention to word order, and avoid mixed constructions and faulty predication. You also want to work on developing a concise style. You want to avoid deadwood constructions, avoid redundancy, carefully consider your passive verbs, and avoid pretentiousness. This will help with developing an engaging style, which uses specific descriptive verbs, specific precise modifiers. It emphasizes people when possible. It varies your sentence style. It avoids overuse of any kind of construction in the same sentence. And it doesn't change your point of view between or within sentences. You also want to develop an emphatic style, which considers word order, uses coordination to stress two closely related ideas equally, and use subordination to connect a main idea and a less emphasized one. So, to develop effective sentences, you want to develop a clear style, a concise style, an engaging style, and an emphatic style. To give your sentences content, you want to avoid fuzzy thinking. Fuzzy sentences are often the result of fuzzy thinking, so be clear on what you're trying to say. You don't want to pad your paragraphs with sentences that run in circles and don't lead anywhere. Rethink your ideas and revise your writing so that every sentence, like each brick in a wall, contributes to the construction of a solid discussion. You may have a definite idea in mind, but still continue to write empty sentences, which are statements that alone don't contain enough information to make a specific point in your discussion. So make sure that each sentence that you're putting into your paragraphs are related to your overall goal in writing. So let's take a look at how to make your sentences more specific. So here we have a vague sentence. She went home in a bad mood. Well, what kind of a bad mood? How did she act, or how did she look? So to be more specific, to show versus telling, she stomped home, hands jammed in her pockets, angrily kicking rocks, dogs, small children, and anything else that crossed her path. So here you've said the same thing, only in a much more interesting way. And you know precisely the level of anger. So before bad mood says, well, she could be a little upset, but this is pretty specific that she's highly upset. So then we have another vague sentence. His neighbor bought a really nice desk. How nice? How old? What kind? But then, to be more specific, you can say, his neighbor bought an oak roll-top desk made in 1885 that contains a secret drawer triggered by a hidden spring. So then you're thinking Downton Abbey and old libraries and roll-top desks, and you really have a clear picture of what's going on here. And then you say, my roommate is truly horrible. Well, horrible in what ways? To what extent? Do you see this person? Because you could be using horrible ironically and saying it in a funny way when they're not horrible at all. But if you turn around and say, my thoughtless roommate leaves dirty dishes under the bed, sweaty clothes in the closet, and toenail clippings in the sink, you know that not only is the person horrible, but they're kind of gross too. But on the same token, you have to be careful not to overpack your sentences. Try dividing the ideas into 2 or more sentences. Don't ever run the risk of losing your reader in a sentence that says way too much to comprehend in one bite. Try rephrasing your meaning in shorter sentences and then combining thoughts where most appropriate. Also, you want to fix your major sentence errors. These are very common, fragments and run-ons. So there's either not enough or there's way too much. So with a fragment, it's missing something. David bought a gopher ranch, then hoping to strike it rich. Well, on its own, David bought a gopher ranch works because it's David, he did something and you know what something that he did. Whereas hoping to strike it rich, if I leave that on its own, if I take it out of that two sentence combination, you don't necessarily know what hoping to strike it rich is. So you can say David bought a gopher ranch, comma, hoping to strike it rich, or David bought a gopher ranch. He hoped to strike it rich. And then the other common error is the run-on. Peter the Penguin was disappointed at the airport security checkpoint. He learned he was on the no-fly list. I mean, that's a lot. You're saying way too many things in one sentence. So you can do this by correcting either with a semicolon or with a subordination. So, Peter the Penguin was disappointed at the airport security checkpoint, semicolon. He learned he was on the no-fly list. And then you can correct with a subordination. Peter the Penguin was disappointed at the airport security checkpoint when he learned he was on the no-fly list. And that's the book's attempt at humor, Penguin, no-fly list. You also want to work on developing a concise style by avoiding deadwood constructions, redundancy, carefully considering your passive verbs, and avoiding pretentiousness. To develop an engaging style, you want to use specific descriptive verbs, specific precise modifiers that help the reader see, hear, or feel what you are describing, emphasize people when possible, vary your sentence style, avoid overusing any one kind of construction in the same sentence, don't change your point of view between or within sentences, and then develop your emphatic style with word order, coordination, and subordination. Hope this helps.